Evening, lovely viewer. Well, I've got one for you tonight, and for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you might notice that this where I am here is the home of David Austin. It is David Austin's headquarters, and I went there yesterday. It's a trip that I was looking forward to for a long time, and this is the footage that I've got from it. But before we go in to see the roses, I need to say just a couple of things. One, this is a voiceover. I didn't do a running commentary at the time because it was too busy with people, so I'm doing a voiceover here. And the second thing that I wanted to say was, I want to make it clear that I am not a rose expert. I'm not a rose expert, and certainly when it comes to rose fragrance, I am most definitely not a rose expert. I am learning about rose fragrance, especially after leaving David Austin's. I need to know more. But I do want to give you some information that David Austin himself says on his website. And I think that this is information that is not really widely used on the internet. And that is that the weather can affect the fragrance of a rose greatly. Now, this is new to me. This is new information to me. Obviously, we know rain affects the fragrance of a rose. But looking on the internet, I'm now finding out since this visit to David Austin that even things like cloud or too much sun, too hot, too much heat, or if it's mild, these things can affect the fragrance of a rose. And I believe that some roses are affected by weather more than others. This is all new information to me. It really is. Now, I have got some fragrant roses in my garden. I didn't notice this last year. I have roses like Gertrude, like Arthur Bell, Fragrant Cloud, perhaps Eustacia Vi. I had those roses in my garden last year, and for me, they were always fragrant. They were always fragrant for me, and I didn't notice any drop off with weather. But this year, I've got some new roses that are fragrant, but I am seeing that some days they perform better than other days, and I'm learning now that it is to do with weather. And this visit to David Austin, I saw the same thing. I think some roses, they can be affected by the weather. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in, we're going to see the roses, and I'm going to show you my favourite roses. Roses that even if the weather was off, there were some really nice fragrant roses here. And in fact, this one you're looking at here, is Gertrude. Regardless of what the weather's doing, regardless as to whether or not my nose is working, it is a rose that has always been fragrant for me. Rain, no problem. I always get a fantastic fragrance from Gertrude. And it can't come as any coincidence that when you walk around the David Austin Rose Garden, there are many Gertrudes there, particularly the areas of high footfall traffic. Excuse me. many Gertrudes there. Now, I went to David Austin Rose Garden. One of the roses that I wanted to get was Desdemona. And I did see a Desdemona there, and I smelt it, and I'm not saying that Desdemona is not a fragrant rose. I know it must be a fragrant rose. But for me, yesterday when I smelt it, I did not get much from it. And I can only assume that it was the weather. Now, if I'm wrong, please tell me. Please tell me. We watch these videos, we watch these reviews. And, I am yet to see a video where someone says, this is a very fragrant rose, but today it's a bit cloudy and it's not letting off so much scent. I haven't seen those videos. They may exist, but I haven't seen them. We want to hear certain things, don't we? We want to hear how fragrant they are. This here is another Gertrude. You see, it's no coincidence. All around the entrance, the main entrance, Gertrude looking fantastic, and of course letting off that fantastic fragrance. Here we go inside, and This is Lady of Shalott, growing as a climber up a wall, and I have to say she looked fantastic. She really did. We're basically just going to walk around and see my favourite roses, and that was a serious bit of eye candy growing there. I was very impressed with that one. But yeah, I don't want to. I'm still learning about rose fragrance, and throughout this video, I'm not going to break the component parts of fragrance down. But here, what you're seeing is it's Jubilee celebration, and I filmed this because I just wanted you to see how close together these were planted. There's 5 of them there, and there's 2 or 3 of them less than a foot apart. Now, I don't know how long they're going to stay there for, but I found that interesting that they were planted so close together. So close together, less than a foot apart, 2 or 3 of them. And I thought that was cool. I actually like that. Like this here is Strawberry Hill, and this was a rose that I was planning to get prior to going to David Austin's, or I was at least considering it. And it was a nice rose. It had, for me, it had nice fragrance. It looks lovely, and it had a good fragrance to it. But I didn't end up getting that rose. But this rose, look at this. This is the Poet's Wife. Absolutely fantastic. Look at it. As far as yellow roses go, this was by a country mile my favourite rose. There's my hand for a size comparison. A beautiful flower. And regardless of what the weather was doing, this rose had a magnificent fragrance. And there was many of these Poets' Wives planted throughout the gardens. I don't think that's a coincidence either. Magnificent rose. Right, this here is Harlow carr, grown as a standard. And you can see there's still many flowers waiting to come through. A nice fragrance. Getting the right time to go to David Austin's was always going to be tricky. And I think if I'd left a week later, it may have been a bit better, but there were still many flowers there. You can see everything pretty much is in flower. A nice fragrance. James Galway, this is amongst my favourites. I was blown away with this fragrance for me, and this was yesterday, in yesterday's weather conditions and everything else. I found that a fantastic rose, and again, no coincidence, I saw many of these planted all around. Magnificent fragrance, and a lovely flower. A lovely flower. It doesn't seem to be drooping. I'm actually growing one of these in my back garden, you're probably aware. But look at that, as a flower, magnificent. Right, I think this here is the Ancient Mariner, and this was another one of my favourites. You're going to hear me say this 4 or 5 times. Brilliant fragrance, a beautiful flower. Beautiful flower. I love that pink and the white. It's not a huge flower, just where it fades to white around the edges. But it's a fragrance. I walked past this a couple of times and I had to stop and smell the fragrance each time. Beautiful. This here is Queen of Denmark. Not a rose. Again, it's another rose like Ancient Mariner. Not a rose that I'd heard of. But I really like this. Not a large flower. I would suggest it's a small to medium size. Another beautiful fragrance. A lovely rose. And I do like being surprised by these roses that I haven't even heard of. But a magnificent fragrance. Now, this here is Gentle Hermione. This is Hayley's strongest fragrance rose in her garden. You can see there, a beautiful flower. A good size, but for me, I didn't get much fragrance from it. But that's just for me, and this happened to be the only Gentle Hermione that I saw at David Austin's. Perhaps there were more, but I only saw this one. Now this here is the Generous Garter, I believe. Look at that flower. Look at that. Magnificent. Good fragrance. Stamens in the middle, I believe. And this is only a baby plant, but I saw a few of these planted around as well. The Generous Gardener. This is only a baby rose, but look at that flower. And a lovely fragrance to go with it. A lovely rose. Yeah, the Generous Garter. Very impressed with that one. Right, this here, Emily Bronte. This is going to feature quite a bit in this video. Look at that upright growth. Excuse me, sorry. Very impressed with this rose. Excellent fragrance, powerful. Regardless of what the atmospherics are doing, regardless of if it's cloudy or anything else, there were many of those roses planted throughout David Austin's. And in fact, here's another Emily Bronte just to show. Probably my top 2 of the whole day, Emily Bronte. Fantastic fragrance. Looked very healthy. Lovely roses. And a strong fragrance that was adorable. I think that's the Poet's Wife there. I think this is an area that wasn't so floritious. But I think, look at all the buds coming through there. Yeah, very difficult to get the right time of year. Perhaps if I'd gone a week later, maybe I would have been bowled over by that fragrance that you see so often on YouTube. It just didn't happen for me. Yeah, it is the Poet's Wife. Look at that. Many, many Poet's Wives planted all over. So nearly bought that rose. So nearly bought it. Right, this here is the Lark Ascending, and I filmed this because those roses, they have to be about 5 foot high, and there's probably 4 or 5 of them. But when I pan down to the ground level, I want you to see, it appears to me, that those roses are planted sort of like 1 foot apart. I might be wrong, but look at it. You know, are you seeing the same as what I'm seeing there? Those roses, they look like they are planted just 1 foot apart. Now, I'm not knocking that. I could tell you a story about, planting too close together. But that looks like an established rose. It's not in flower at the moment, obviously, but planted very close together. Oh, I can't see what it says there. I think this is Crown Margareta, Princess Margareta. And this was another rose. Really, really impressed with. Look at that flower. Look at that flower. And it had a lovely fragrance as well. Very impressed with this rose. There were hundreds of roses at David Austin's. There's a size comparison there. Hundreds and hundreds. I'm showing you my favourites. There are favourites within my favourites, of course. But I'm only showing you the ones that I was most impressed with. And this one here is, I can't pronounce it. I never can pronounce it. Bathsheba. Now this rose, it had a fragrance unlike any other that I smelt all day. And I have heard mixed reviews about this rose, but I actually like this. The roses themselves, the flower's very big. That one's drooping down a bit. But I like that rose. Yeah, I liked it. I think this here is another Bathsheba. Oh, in fact, this might be... Emily Bronte. I think this might be the clip where I come across my favourite rose of the day. And I think I actually do a commentary. So I'm just going to hit the pause on my commentary, and I might flip you over to the normal commentary, because I don't think anyone was around. I'm going to be buying 2, possibly 3 roses today. And I'm trying to make my mind up as to what I want. But there's some fantastic roses around here. This one's called Carolyn Night. That's a very deep cut one. Oh, and that's got fragrance. Oh, that's a nice one. That's a lovely fragrance, this one here. And there she is. This is a lovely rose. It's a rose I haven't heard of. English Leander Hybrid, 2013.
focus. It's a lovely looking rose. Oh, that is a really nice fragrance, that one. I'm really pleased with this rose here. Carolyn Light. I'm going to have to remember that. But there she is there. She is gorgeous. I'm going to have another sniff of this one. No, this is my favourite fragrance, I think, so far. I really did like James Galway. But this one has, this one's taken my fancy. I might have to sit down, have a coffee and Google this one a bit more.
Yes, Caroline Knight. That was my favourite rose of the day. Absolutely magnificent, but I don't think you can get it at the moment. But this rose here is the Shropshire Lad, and I think this flower here has gone over just a little bit, but a nice fragrance. Fragrance was coming through. This is an established climber here as well, and I think it's kind of a little bit of a centerpiece. This sort of building that it's growing up right in the middle of the David Austin Rose Garden. But you can see that flower there. Beautiful, beautiful looking flower, attractive, a lovely colour, and the fragrance come through. Here is another poet's wife. But you can see, you can see how beautiful this rose is. Look at that. Just absolutely fantastic. And it can't be a coincidence that this rose was planted in several areas of their gardens. As you know, I don't break down the fragrance. Some people can do that. I can't do that. I wish I could do that, but I just can't. I'm still learning. People they talk about this and that one with regards to rose fragrance. All I can tell you is I could not walk past this rose without smelling it. A very attractive fragrance, that rose. And regardless of what the weather was doing, that fragrance it shone through. And I think here again the same thing. Emily Bronte again planted all over with that strong fragrance, upright growth. It can't be a coincidence. Whilst other roses, surprised me with their lack of fragrance yesterday, these roses that seem to be planted everywhere, Emily Bronte, for example, the fragrance coming through, I didn't see what rose that was. And this here, I think this one here is Princess Alexandra of Kent. This was another rose that I liked. Lovely fragrance, lovely rose. I saw a few of these, and they all seem to have sort of like that upright growth. I didn't see any drooping sort of flowers. I'm pretty sure that is Princess Alexandra of Kent, and that was a nice rose. No doubt. This is Gabriel Oak that is next to it. And there was quite a few of those as well, but they seem to be planted in groups of, 6, 7 or 8 roses all together. And I think that there is Olivia Rose Austin, I believe. And I didn't read that. Oh, I think this is another Princess Alexandra of Kent. That flower there seems to have gone over a little bit, but yeah, this was a lovely rose, lovely fragrance. I didn't actually buy any roses when I went there. I've mentioned, and I drove back. I was a little disappointed because at the time I just didn't know what was going on. All these roses that I was, or in fact, I'm going to go to the normal commentary here. Hold on.
One of my favourites so far from today, and I've been halfway round. It's the Ancient Mariner. I think I filmed it earlier, but there's no one around now. So I thought I would just come back as I was passing it, but it has got a really nice fragrance, and the flowers, they do look very nice. They do look very nice indeed. the Ancient Mariner. It's not one I've thought of previously, but she is looking fine. And a lovely fragrance to this one. Yes, lovely fragrance.
Yes, well, there it is, the Ancient Mariner. I was very impressed with that one. Yeah, when I was travelling back, there was many roses there that I was disappointed with. Surprised to see that there was a lack of fragrance. You know, I had these expectations that kind of just wasn't met. But at the same time, during this visit, there were other roses that exceeded my expectations. I didn't get blown away with the fragrance. Maybe it was a week further down the line, I would have been blown away with the fragrance. Like you do see people, they go to the David Austin headquarters, they do get blown away. That didn't happen for me, but I do believe there is a little bit of gravity in weather affecting some of the roses. Now, I've shown you my favourite roses from that day, but that's just for me. But we've run out of footage now. I might fill in with a photograph. That was just fragrance for me through my nose on that particular day. Your nose on a different day, it might be completely different. But lovely viewer, these were my favourite roses from my trip to David Austin. I hope you have a lovely evening.